Okay, we're back. Chat, I can see your chats now. I'm like 99% sure. I made sure it was everybody I'm following can chat to me. Okay, we're back for chapter 16. We're just doing back to back streams. I saw we only had two left. Yeah, here we go. We got stimulant. Hey, purple heart. Okay, I'm just gonna switch the music to something more for the background, I guess. I just don't want lyrics, in the foreground. We could do some classical for this one. Ooh, let's do Gustav Holst the Planets. All right, that's gonna be the vibe. We're planetary. We're going global. Okay, you know, the book club says think continentally, but I think we're gonna think interplanetarily. We're gonna think solar systemally. Okay, but let's see. Let me get the book open. Let me make sure I got everything ready. Chapter 16, Why Good People Make Poor Decisions. Okay. I think we got everything. Let me just close these extra windows. I don't need this open. All right, we're back. All right, we're cooking. We're cooking. I got my mic on. It's not muted. The music is so quiet. It's not even being picked up by the mixer. Okay, now it is. Finally. All right. Let's get into it. Chapter 16. Sources of Power by Gary Klein. Chapter 16, Why Good People Make Poor Decisions. This is the last chapter before the conclusions chapter, so we're almost done. Poor outcomes are different from poor decisions. The best decision possible, given the knowledge available, can still turn out unhappily. I am interested only in the cases where we regret the way that we made the decision, not the outcome. I define a poor decision where we regret the process we used in the following way. A person will consider a decision to be poor if the knowledge gained would lead to a different decision if a similar situation arose. Simply knowing that the outcome was unfavorable should not matter. Knowing what you failed to do or failed to consider would matter. I'll just note that here. Those who favor analytical approaches to decision making believe poor decisions are caused by biases in the way that we think. He's just totally shitting on Klein right now. Not Klein. Klein is shitting on Kahneman, because that's literally like the Thinking Fast and Slow was all about the biases. It was all about the weak spots of System 1 and where we could use System 2 to fill in the gaps, or when we should engage with System 2. So he's just clowning on his colleague. He's just saying like, yo dog, if you got this far in the book, if you read this far, he's just dissing you right at the end. Naturalistic decision-making researchers disagree. He's like saying, me and all my homies disagree. All right, so he's just spitting. We tend to reject the idea of faulty reasoning and try to show that poor decisions are caused by factors such as lack of experience. The decision bias explanation is the more widespread and popular view, so we will examine it first. I will say, just a chapter ago, and I just want to jump back real quick, and I probably did highlight it. Our experience helps us anticipate the impacts of inconsistent beliefs and set the level of effort for reducing inconsistencies. But I think he said something about experience not... Yeah. I just want to couch these two ideas. I want to see if I can connect the two ideas. We try to perceive inconsistencies in order to detect anomalies. The anomalies trigger our efforts diagnose situations and initiate problem solving. We try to see the inconsistencies, the following. Okay. Yeah, so real quick, I'll just see if it was in here. Yeah, no, okay. Maybe I was extrapolating too much about what he was thinking or saying. But anyways, back on track. The decision contradicting yourself to own your colleague. Yeah, pretty much. That's what I'm like. Did we get this far just for him to contradict himself right at the end? I mean, that would be pretty funny. Yeah, so the decision bias explanation is the more widespread and popular view. Are poor decisions caused by biased thinking? Yeah, here we go. Okay, Kahneman, Slavic, and Tversky in 1982 presented a range of studies showing that decision makers use a variety of heuristics, simple procedures that usually produce an answer but are not foolproof. The studies showed that in making judgments, we rely on information that is more readily available and appears more representative of the situation. We usually start analyses with known facts and make judgments from these. Kahneman, Slavic, and Tversky designed their studies so that the heuristics they were trying to demonstrate would lead to worse performance. He's saying they tried to prove their own hypothesis, basically saying they were unscientific. The rationale was that the heuristics were so powerful that their subjects would use them even if it meant more errors. The studies used tasks in which probabilities could be calculated in advance, allowing the researchers to set up objective standards for performance. The research strategy was not to demonstrate how poorly we make judgments, but to use these findings to uncover the cognitive processes underlying judgments of likelihood. Because of this strategy, many professionals have interpreted this research as demonstrating biases, not just heuristics. The research strategy has become known as the heuristics and biases paradigm. To date, more than 24 decision biases have been identified, and many researchers interpret this research as showing that people are inherently biased and will misconstrue evidence. Therefore, decision errors must be caused by these biases. Decision training programs, such as the one presented by Jay Russo and Paul Shoemaker in their book Decision Traps, were designed to reduce the influence of the decision biases. The Heuristics and Biases School is active and influential, particularly in the United States and Great Britain. And you could say probably that these two nations have some of the most, what would you call it? I would say probably the most active intelligence agencies besides Israel, but he's not going to say that. You wouldn't expect him to just be like dropping that on you. But it is also coming under attack now. We also have interesting special force teams and whatnot. Lola Lopez, we're going to say it like Lopez? I'm going to say it like Lopez. Has shown that the original studies did not demonstrate biases in the common use of the term. For example, Kahneman and Tversky in 1973 used questions such as this. Consider the letter R. Shout out to Eidolon, by the way. He's R-pilled. Is R more likely to appear in the first position of a word or the third position of a word? The example taps into our heuristic of availability. We have an easier time recalling words that begin with R than words with R in the third position. Most people answer that R is more likely to occur in the first position. This is incorrect. It shows how we rely on availability. Lopez points out that examples such as the one using the letter R were carefully chosen. Of the 20 possible consonants, 12 are more common in the first position. Kahneman and Tversky used the 8 that are more common in the third position. They used stimuli only where the availability heuristic would result in a wrong answer. So they're saying they cherry-picked it, essentially. Eideron. Yeah, Eideron. Yo, he should change his name, man. They used stimuli. Yeah, they cherry-picked. Several studies found that decision biases are reduced if the study includes contextual factors, and that the heuristics and biases do not occur in experienced decision makers working in natural settings. Yeah, one thing that you will note is that he used a lot of his studies on students. He performed a lot of his studies on students, is what I should have said. They involved student studies where it's like, my colleagues and I went to a university and we studied 10 random students. We asked 10 random students. So, yeah, students don't really have a lot of experience. They're young adults. So I could see you could make that claim, absolutely. I think it's fair to make that argument there. There is an irony here. One of the primary biases is confirmation bias, the search for information that confirms your hypothesis. Dude, he is just pounding Kahneman right now. He's just blowing him out. Even though you would learn more by searching for evidence that might disconfirm it. The confirmation bias has been shown in many laboratory studies and has not been found in a number of studies conducted in natural settings. Yet one of the most common strategies of scientific research is to derive a prediction from a favorite theory and test it to show that it is accurate, thereby strengthening the reputation of that theory. Scientists search for confirmation all of the time, even though philosophers of science such as Karl Popper, Karl Popper just popped up, have urged scientists to try instead to disconfirm their favorite theories. Researchers working in the heuristics and biases paradigm condemn this sort of bias in their subjects, even as those same researchers perform more laboratory studies confirming their theories. Damn, he is just shitting on them. What accounts for errors in natural decision settings? Naturalistic decision-making researchers are coming to doubt that errors can be neatly identified and attributed to faulty reasoning. Jim Reason, nominative determinism there, and at the University of Manchester finds that the operator of a system who is blamed for the error is often the victim of a series of problems of faulty design and practice. Reason coined the term latent pathogens to refer to all the problems such as poor design, poor training, and poor procedures that may be undetected until the operator falls into the trap. It is easy to blame the operator for the mistake, because he's the one in charge. Yet all of the earlier problems made the mistake virtually inevitable. David Woods and his colleagues at Ohio State University assert that decision errors do not exist. Interesting. If we try to understand the information available to a person, the goals the person is pursuing, and the level of experience, we will stop blaming people for making decision errors. No one is arguing that we should not look at poor outcomes. The reverse is true. The discovery of an error is the beginning of the inquiry, rather than the end. The real work is to find out the range of factors that resulted in the undesirable outcome. To get a better sense of what leads to poor decisions, I reviewed the data my colleagues and I had collected in different domains, covering more than 600 decision points. He's just citing himself. That's pretty badass. He's been doing that this whole book, but like right now it's especially funny. He's just foiling himself against Kahneman. I identified any decision point that resulted in a poor outcome where the decision maker could have known better. I primarily relied on the comments of the decision makers for the incidents where they admitted they had done the wrong thing. I categorized a set of 25 decisions as errors, This is a small number, so the conclusions are only speculative. I was able to place the errors into 3 categories. Of the 25, 16 were due to lack of experience. For example, a fireground commander failed to call in a second alarm because the fire did not seem large. He didn't realize that the balloon construction of the building made it vulnerable to damage to the supporting framework. Now that he knows better, he doubts if he will make the mistake again. A second cause of poor decisions was lack of information. For example, a flight crew failed to obtain full weather reports prior to takeoff and failed to identify alternate landing sites. When the simulated flight ran into difficulties due to malfunctions thrown at them by the people controlling the exercise, the weather profile was inadequate for selecting an alternate landing site. The third source of poor decisions was due to mental simulation, the de minimis error. Decision makers noticed the signs of a problem but explained it away. They found a reason not to take seriously each piece of evidence that warned them of an anomaly. As a result, they did not detect the anomaly in time to prevent a problem. Example 16.1, the missed diagnosis. I think I chose too quiet, too boring music. Let me put on some IDM. Let me just put on some IDM real quick. Let me just put on some music real quick that doesn't suck. Let's see. What do we got? What do we got? I know we got something. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Come on, man. How could you not play this? The missed diagnosis. In the neonatal intensive care unit, or the NICU, the nurse is assigned to a baby who is not in her regular care. She notices that the baby has a distended stomach, blood in the stool, along with a 3 centimeter oh, wait, hold on. A 3 what? Aspirate? Let's just Google this real quick. I don't know what that means. And Googling it is giving me not good stuff. Let's see. Let me just Google all these things together. I wonder if this will come up. Ooh, okay. Abdominal hematoma. Okay, I still don't know what the CC is. I wish you would, that might be a formatting error, actually. Sometimes that happens in these books. The PDF isn't the best. Okay, so all the signs are of necrotizing enterocylitis, a condition of afflicting premature babies in which the bowel becomes infected. The nurse does nothing, and by the next day, the baby is critically ill. The nurse fails to act because she explains away each symptom. The distended belly reminds her of an earlier case in which the neonatal intensive care unit treated this baby's sister. The sister also had an unusually large belly, so the nurse classifies the feature as a family trait. The blood in the stool is only a small amount and can be related to the baby's nasogastral tube. And finally, the 3, cc, cubic centimeter, I don't know what that is, aspirate is small enough so that by itself it could not be considered unusual. I don't know, maybe he'll explain what that means. Anyways, the weakness is that decision makers can easily dismiss evidence that is inconvenient, explaining away the early warning signs. These limitations could prevent decision makers from detecting the early signs of a problem because they might not recognize anomalies or sense the urgency of the problem. The limitations could lead decision makers to misrepresent the situation, perhaps by explaining away key pieces of information. Failing to consider, excuse me, slurring my words, alternate explanations and diagnoses, or leaving decision makers confused by complexity. Finally, the limitations in experience could make it too hard for decision makers to notice weaknesses in their planned courses of action. The effect of stress on decision making. We often blame poor decisions on stress. This is too simplistic. The evidence that supposedly shows that stress results in decision errors is not convincing. I'll posit. I'll throw my own lot in here. I'm someone who works well under stress. In fact, I actually like to be stressed. I think I perform better. I think it's exciting. I think it's. I know it's not good for me. Okay, I'll make that part obvious. I know stress is not good for you. The high levels of cortisol in the blood at sustained levels for long periods of time is not good for you. It ages you. It makes your hair fall out, gives you gray hairs. It literally wears your heart out. You literally die earlier if you're stressed all the time. But I think that personally I operate better on a low level of stress, so like a constant low simmer of stress. That's not to say I like chaotic or unrecoverable or like totally out of hand situations. It's just that I like the feeling. I like the feeling of being engaged. I like a little bit of stress in my day to day. A day with no stress is boring and easily forgotten, and it doesn't engage. It's like, that's the best way to put it. It's like not engaging. So yeah, I perform well under stress. I like stress. Stress is it reminds you that life is a struggle. Life is constantly a battle between the total order and total chaos. Yeah, if my hands are steady, stimulant says, I might as well be asleep. Yeah, I like drinking energy drinks. I like smoking a cigarette every day. In the middle of the day when it's boring, when I'm at my lowest energy, that's when I pop the energy drink. That's when I smoke a little cigarette, just one. I'm not like it's truly like, I don't have to buy cigarettes. I don't need them. I could just throw away a pack of cigarettes. I could stomp on it in front of somebody. I don't need the nicotine, but it is nice as like a pick-me-up, as like at the most boring part of the day, at the most low, like when you're at your trough, when you have the least amount of energy and you just smoke one cigarette. I mean, I don't think it's going to kill anybody. On a work day anyway, so like 2 days off on the weekends, I'm not smoking. So, energy drinks, not every day, but occasionally. More often than not, I'll have an energy drink. So yeah, I like the high energy. I like the caffeinated feeling. I like being stressed. I like being engaged. I like when my work is harder than it is easier. Don't stomp on a pack of cigarettes in front of stimulant. You would cry. Yeah, I don't even care, man. Cigarettes don't do anything to me except for making me a little. They give you a little head rush. It's like a stimulant. It's literally a stimulant. It literally makes you feel better. Depressants. I don't like alcohol. I've never tried really any drugs besides alcohol and cigarettes, and those are the two that I probably have tried the most. And I like cigarettes, man. Energy drinks is good. I love caffeine. Caffeine's good. I drink like 2 cups of coffee every day. It's good. I like the stress. Cigarettes even you out and lock you in. I don't know if they even me out, but they definitely, yeah, the nicotine rush definitely locks you in. I would agree with that 100%. It's like when you are looking at your phone. Sorry, it's like when you're reading a book and you check your phone, and then you throw your phone like in a drawer or something. Like you just put it away, but like you feel so good You've went through all your notifications. You made sure there was nothing important. Then you throw your phone away so you can go read a book. That's what that's like. That's what smoking a cigarette's like. It's like you don't have to worry about it. You got it out of the way. I know it sounds like an addiction. It's so funny. But, like, truly, I really don't need cigarettes. And I don't think anybody does. But, yeah, stress is good. I think stress during the week is good. You should not be stressed on the weekend. You should not be stressed 7 days a week. You got to have a cool down period. You got to relax. You can't burn out. All right, pausing the Spanish ad. But anyways, I'm rambling. Let's get back to the book. Reflect back on the fireground commanders, nurses, and pilots, and others we have examined who performed so well under extreme time pressure. And by the way, yeah, my brother is literally he's a firefighter. He's a nationally certified firefighter, so he can go work anywhere. He's working on getting his pilot's license, so he could be one of the firefighters who flies the planes and dumps the fire retardant, the flame retardant, over the forest fires. That's like his dream job. I hope he gets it. But yeah, he loves firefighting. So he's told me some cool stories, some real gruesome stories that I don't really want to repeat. But yeah, he's good on his feet. He's good at making decisions under pressure. I think he's actually better at making decisions under pressure than not under pressure. If you give him too much time or too much freedom, if you give him too much liberty in making a choice, he will not make a choice. He likes the pressure. So I think it might be genetic. I don't know. Yeah, it does sound like a fun job. He said they do long hours, though. It's like as soon as the planes refueled, like you go back up. So it's like constant. Like you're just going. But anyways. Yeah, under extreme time pressure, high stakes, ambiguity, and other features of naturalistic decision-making. Remember the study described in Chapter 10, showing that chess masters continue to make strong moves even under extreme time pressure, an average of 6 seconds per move. We should not be so willing to accept the premise that stress results in decision errors. Yeah, I don't think it does. I think if you don't have experience, I think if you're inexperienced, the time pressure gets to you. But if you're like an operator, if you're someone who's like experienced, you've seen all the different things, what's time except just like the shrinking of the horizon of when you have to make the decision? Obviously, if you shrink the time horizon too small, you're going to make bad decisions. You won't even have time to make an instinctual decision. But as soon as you have your first decision lined up, as soon as you have your first choice of action lined up, it's like, it's probably the best one. Go with your gut. Okay, it's probably going to be the right choice. I don't think time pressure, at a certain level, you're just getting diminishing returns with adding more time to a decision if you have experience. I am not arguing that stressors do not have an effect. My claim is that stress does affect the way we process information, but it does not cause us to make bad decisions based on the information at hand. It does not warp our minds into making poor choices. Stressors such as time pressure, noise, and ambiguity result in the following effects. The stressors do not give us a chance to gather as much information. I'm going to highlight these because I think these are good. I might want to come back to these. What the hell? I just highlight... Dude, get rid of this. Please. Bruh. How do you delete this? Oh, here we go. Sorry. I saw the trash can. I saw the X and thought it was like gonna do what the trash can did. Okay. Dude! Okay, so it matters where you click when you're done. Jeez. So you gotta be careful where you click when you're done. Great. If you double click, it highlights too much. Weird program, weird software. Calibre is a little finicky, okay? So sometimes when you're using it, it's like, you gotta figure out what you did wrong. It's usually a pilot error. Okay, so anyways, stressors such as time pressure, noise, and ambiguity result in the following effects. The stressors do not give us a chance to gather as much information. So we're at a disadvantage in terms of information loss or unreliable information, degraded information. In a noisy room, it's hard to hear what someone's saying, stuff like that. If it's a dark room, you can't see very well. Even if you have night vision goggles, it's degraded versus daytime. So that's a stressor. The stressors disrupt our ability to use our working memory to sort things out. Yes. Someone asks you a question and they tell you, like, give me an answer right now. You don't have time to sit back and think about it. You don't have time to sort through your long-term memory and try and reason something out or think back to an example. It's very tough. Someone puts you on the spot. If you've ever seen like a game show, like Jeopardy, or Jeopardy or like Wheel of Fortune, when they're like trying to guess something or like answer something under time pressure, it's very hard to exhaust your memory. It's very hard to work through it and think to maybe how you came to remember something or how you learned it. Usually those sort of context clues or like those cues help you remind yourself of like, how did I remember this thing? Oh, yeah. I remember that because when I was around that time that I learned this thing. Oh, yeah, that's how I learned that. Okay, I remember this. You don't have time to go through those chains of memories to get to the memory you want. It's very hard to access memory like that under time pressure. But lastly, the stressors distract our attention from the task at hand. Yes, so focus. Stress does make it hard to focus if the stress is external, if it's not coming from the situation. So like if you're on a busy street and you're trying to navigate on your phone, or you're trying to be like a co-pilot in a car. You've got your phone out and you're giving directions to the driver, and there's like kids in the back of the back of the car, and they're like kicking your seat and they're like yelling. It's very hard to, get your point across or tell them to remember to look at your phone to give them directions. You're distracted. So, under time pressure, we obviously will not be able to sample as many cues. But if our decisions get worse, it is not because a state of stress clouded our minds, but that we did not have the chance to gather all the facts. Incidentally, the data shows that experienced decision makers adapt to time pressure very well by focusing on the most relevant cues and ignoring the others. Stressors such as noise may interfere with the ability to rehearse things in working memory. This factor might be particularly disruptive for tasks requiring a lot of mental simulation. The concentration needed to construct a mental simulation of how a plan will be carried out may sometimes require inner speech. However, I do not know of any studies showing that noise and other distractors interfere with mental simulation. Maybe that's true for experts. I don't know. If you're in a noisy room and you're trying to like visualize something, it is kind of hard. I don't know if I agree with that. Anyways, maybe if you're a true operator. A third effect of stressors is to capture our attention. If we have to adapt to noise, pain, or fear, for instance, then we may need to monitor ourselves. We have to manage our reactions, like hyperventilation, to the stressor. Now we have two things to do: make the decision and cope with the stressor. The more tasks we have to juggle, the worse we generally do. Stressors should disrupt decision-making the most if people use strategies such as a rational choice analysis. Time pressure and ambiguity alone would prevent anyone from carrying out that type of strategy. If we believed that people ordinarily generate option sets and contrasted the options, then we would expect stress to degrade decision-making. However, if people rely on recognitional decision strategies, then we would not expect to see such disruption, particularly when the decision makers were reasonably experienced. The problem of uncertainty. One definition of uncertainty paraphrasing Lipschitz and Shaw in 1997, is doubt that threatens to block action. Key pieces of information are missing, unreliable, ambiguous, inconsistent, or too complex to interpret. And as a result, a decision maker will be reluctant to act. In many cases, the action will be delayed or will be overtaken by events as windows of opportunity close. Because it is impossible to achieve 100% certainty, decision makers must be able to proceed without having a full understanding of events. Some decision makers may be too impetuous? Hold on. We're just going to Google this word real quick because I don't know what this word means.
Impetuous.
Impetuous. But that's the... here's the United States pronunciation.
Impetuous.
Impetuous. Okay, that's better.
Impetuous.
Impetuous. Oh, I didn't look up what it meant. I looked up how to pronounce it, but not what it meant. Acting or done quickly and without a care. Impulsive, rash, hasty. Yeah, reckless. Makes sense. Impetuous. Because it is impossible to achieve 100% certainty, decision makers must be able to proceed without having a full understanding of events. Some decision makers may be too impetuous, chasing after rumors. Others may require too much information, and as a result, they may wait too long to take action. Uncertainty is the reverse side of the ability to size up situations quickly. To see how doubt can block action, contrast the RPD model with the model of uncertainty in Figure 16.1. Everywhere that experience had generated recognition of familiarity, uncertainty generates confusion and a lack of understanding. Where experience enables decision makers to take action rapidly, uncertainty results in doubt. In talking about uncertainty, people tend to mix many things together. A review of the literature shows that people discuss uncertainty in terms of risks, probabilities, confidence, ambiguity, inconsistency, instability, confusions, and complexity. They refer to uncertainty about future states, the nature of the situation, the consequences of actions and preferences. Because so many concepts are packed into the term uncertainty, it is difficult to address how to help people handle uncertainty without becoming more precise. Schmidt and Klein identified 4 sources of uncertainty. Firstly, missing information. Information is unavailable. It has not been received, or has been received but cannot be located when needed. Second, unreliable information. The credibility of the source is low, or is perceived to be low, even if the information is highly accurate. Third, ambiguous or conflicting information. There is more than one reasonable way to interpret the information. So just as a case study, we can talk about this in the wake, I mean, it's still going on, so in the context, I should say, of the UK riots, the race riots going on between the native Brits and the migrants. And as certain alt-Zog posters and certain, what do we call them? It does have to do with the Bapsphere, but a lot of them are just Zionists. A lot of them are just interlopers. A lot of them are like not even from the UK. A lot of these guys are just talking about UK politics as spectators. They do not live in the UK. They don't have any skin in the game. And one thing that we have to contend with is these 4 things. We have a lot of uncertainty. We have missing information. We have unreliable information. We have ambiguous or conflicting information. We have complex information. It is difficult to integrate the different facets of the data. So we have lots of like disjointed and like what's the word I'm looking? Fragmented sources of video. We don't know who the video is from. We don't know where it's taken. We don't know when it's taken. We don't know if the person taking the video is framing a certain group. Maybe they have the camera pointed in a certain direction on purpose. There's so much information going on, and it's hard. We're uncertain about the data. We're uncertain about how to piece it together. Is it disjointed or is it connected? Where do we make the connections? Who's posting this and why? So, interesting case study. There's a lot of uncertainty, but again, if we go back to the chapter 15, we go back to our holistic worldview. We can kind of, based on who's posting the video and when and what other world events are going on and who stands to gain from the uncertainty and who's directing the information, who's capitalizing on the flow of information, what networks are out there and what organizations could possibly have the motivations and the interests to post certain things at certain times, and the way they're posting it, the way the media is portraying these things. Why are we even seeing this in the first place? We're Americans. How is it relevant to us that we're seeing, like, our timelines are flooded with information about the UK riots? Yeah, sure, it's like a nationalist perspective versus the liberal and open society perspective, where it's like the English is for the English versus the multicultural view, that the civic nationalist view that anybody can become English, that immigration doesn't affect society. That's just the first way to frame it. That's the easiest way to frame it, and that kind of makes the players, that makes the people stand out. It makes the teams kind of coalesce. You can start to see who's playing for what side, and if we're talking about X or Twitter specifically, like the timeline, everything we see and who's posting, we can kind of see where the lines are drawn and who's on whose side, who's supporting who's reposting who, what kind of narratives are forming. So yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty, but as time passes, as we start to collect more information, as we start to organize it in our minds and think about the networks and mapping these things onto one another, who's posting information, when, why, what are the motivations? Yeah, a lot of it's ambiguous and it's complex, and a lot of it's unreliable. We don't know who's posting this stuff. It's a lot of just men on the ground videos coming from like Telegram channels that none of us are in, posting these things to Twitter under handles and burner accounts that we don't know who owns the phone, who took the video. We don't know when it was posted. We don't know who posted it. It's all anonymous accounts commenting on it. There's a lot of unreliability. So it takes experience. It takes someone who's seen something like that before. It takes analogies. We can use analogies to explain the situation, like Nick was talking about how January 6th was very similar. There might be actors fomenting unrest and coordinating things, coordinating the crowds to act and behave in certain ways and cause certain group behaviors, and acting as a catalyst for certain like provoking the situation, like stoking the flames of outrage. So, and we all know in January 6th there was federal informants doing this. There were definitely FBI and CIA agents who were in the crowd getting people to act a certain way. The police were coordinating with intel agencies to act a certain way. They were getting information that the crowd wasn't, and they had plans that the people didn't know about. They ordered people to move in certain directions, and they gave them direct orders of where to move and how to move. And so these things they're less organic than they seem. Maybe the people on the ground that aren't federal agents, they have organic beliefs about it, and they're acting organically and they're behaving autonomously. It's like emergent. It's totally organic. But there are actors out there that seek to maneuver and manipulate the crowds rather than just like let the thing happen on its own. And who would stand to gain from letting it happen on its own? So we have to think about this thing. So yeah, there's a lot of unreliable information. It's complex. There's a lot of people who aren't going to get it. They're not going to be able to piece it together. They're not going to be able to make the analogy to January 6th. It's the UK. Why would anyone even want to make that analogy? The people on the ground in the UK they don't care about the United States. They're British. They're English. And how is it anything like the UK? It's not about an election. It's about immigration. It's a totally different scenario. So to them, it's very different. They can't make the same leap in logic. They can't make that analogy. But someone who's had the experience, someone who's seen something before, someone who's able to extrapolate and integrate entire things into their worldview are able to see past this small horizon. They're able to see over the horizon and see what really is going on here. What kind of forces are at play? How does this remind me of a previous experience? And when you're able to do that kind of stuff, people think it's magic, or that you have some kind of like information that they don't. They're like scratching their heads. How could someone possibly come up with that take? They must be a federal informant. They must be connected. They must be part of some intel agency. When it's far from the truth, it's like sometimes you just need to experience the world more, and you need to integrate it into a holistic worldview. You need to have one model for the whole world. It can explain events in the UK that can also explain events in the United States. People behave in patterned ways. It's not a surprise that people behave that way. But anyways, okay. Monologue over. Hopefully that was on topic. Hopefully I made sense there. Anyways, we can also identify several different levels of uncertainty. The level of data, the level of knowledge in which inferences are drawn about the data, and the level of understanding in which the inferences are synthesized into projections of the future, into diagnoses and explanations of events. Is uncertainty inevitable? Clearly, the technology available in the future will dramatically increase the information available. Yet, we cannot be optimistic that increasing information will necessarily reduce uncertainty. Stimulant says W monologue. Let's go. Yeah, I felt the spirit of content flowing through me. I felt it. I was like, I have to. It was just springing forth. I couldn't stop talking. I was like, I can't stop. Sometimes you just literally have to keep talking. You just have to let it. You just have to become the conduit. I've prepared myself by reading the whole book. Like, I'm going to read a whole book and then not become the book. I have to just let the different aspects of each chapter flow through me. And hopefully you guys get some of that. Hopefully some of that is imparted on the audience. Yeah, become the content. A man possessed by content. So true. That's the goal anyways. What's the point of watching Nick if you aren't going to become someone comparable, or someone useful, or someone with comparable utility to Nick? What's the point? What's the point of watching someone day in and day out if you aren't going to be able to do a fraction of what he does? If you're just gonna stand in his shadow, like, just get out of the way. But if you want to help, if you want to push the whole movement forward, if you want to move things in a direction, if you want to be putting your shoulder to the plow, it's like you got to be able to push. You got to know where to push and when to push. And that's why we read. That's why we're doing this stuff. That's why we're consuming all of this content, so we can become the content. That's so important. Hopefully you guys got to see that play out. I'm getting hungry. I'm really feeling the lack of blood sugars. It's taking its toll. I got to get through this. It is more likely that the information age will change the challenges posed by uncertainty. Yeah, I think there's a big problem though with like Discordian, uh, like the, what would you call it? It's like when you're overloaded or you're saturated, you're oversaturated with information. You have too much information. That's like a problem with AI. It's like you can oversaturate it. We actually, the models are shrinking now. The training sets are shrinking now. We're realizing that we have to feed it less training data. It's all about the fine-tuning process at the end that's more important. So it's like the analysis afterwards. It's like, same thing with humans. It's like you can read 100,000 books, but like there's only 10 good books. There's only like 20 good books. And it's about finding which ones were good by reading 10,000 of them. And having 10,000 people read those 10,000 books and rate them. And by factor analysis, find the 10 best books. There's a lot of shit content out there. There's a lot of shitty music. There's a lot of shitty games, a lot of crappy movies. Only a little bit of it is actually very good. So, is all information equal? No. Increasing the information that you consume or that you have to process is not always a good thing. Okay, let's get through this. I keep stopping to produce more content. We got to get through this. For one thing, decision makers will still be plagued. Oh, how uncertainty leads to doubt. I'll leave this up on the screen for a little bit. You guys finally get to see the figures. Can I zoom? Oh, yeah. Just have to click the button. All right, let's see. Is OBS giving you guys this? Oh, it's not even showing this window for you. Whatever. Yeah, I can only zoom in on the text. That's kind of goofy. Anyways. All right, so you guys got the figure there. Let me just read that last sentence again. For one thing, decision makers will still be plagued with missing information. Previously, information was missing because no one had collected it. In the future, information will be missing because no one can find it. Let's go. Moreover, the improved data collection will likely transform into faster decision cycles. By way of analogy, when radar was introduced into commercial shipping, it was for the intent of improving safety so that ships could avoid collisions when visibility was poor. The actual impact was that ships increased their speed and accident rates stayed constant. Wow, that's a good analogy. Let's freaking go. W analogy. It's so good. I'm gonna post this real quick. We're just gonna shrink this so it's better for tweeting. I'll put it back where it was. But I want it to fit in a tweet nicely. Yeah, there we go. We're just doing a little book posting, some live book posting. You guys get to see what I do when I'm just like reading. Where was it? Somewhere around here? Yeah, you just need to be able to see the arrow. Okay. Let's bring up Twitter. I'll switch to the view when I get here. Okay. What do we got? We got this. Really? Can I crop it from here? How would I put that in a freaking screenshot? Dude, I can't like grab the corner and crop it. This is such bullshit. Dude, this is so bad. I hate X, dude. Elon freaking sucks. Alright, hold on. We're just going to open Paint real quick. Since we have no other choice. Okay. W, screenshot, W, book posting. I'll show you guys what I do to crop my my screenshots. I get the background, I invert it. I usually get the background though. Okay. And I'm gonna do a global Okay, we got this. Pop this up. Background on. Alright. And now we, with a canvas, and we stretch the canvas just around it by an inch on all sides. Oops, that should be 9. Yeah, it was 8. So 9 by 5. There you go. There's your screenshot. It looks nice. Alright, you guys got to see some content being made. Alright, let me switch back to the book. And let's see here. Where was I? I gotta close this. Okay. By way of analogy, when radar was introduced into commercial shipping, it was for the intent of improving safety so that ships could avoid collisions when visibility was poor. The actual impact was that ships increased their speed and accident rates stayed constant. On the decision front, we expect to find the same thing. Planning cycles will be expedited, and the plans will be made with the same level of uncertainty as there was before. Moreover, communication technology means that clients expect faster decisions without the time allowed in the past for thoughtful reflection. This is the media cycle. This is the and here's a little anecdote from software development. I talk to a lot of international guys because I run in circles where pretty much like software, you can do it anywhere. So I have a lot of friends from a bunch of different countries. We invited our friend from Sweden to Philadelphia when I was there a couple weeks ago. And he was telling us about his software development experience. And he's like, you Americans, from what I've heard and from what you've told me and what I've heard from other Americans, he said that in Sweden, they care about quality. They care about getting it right. They care about not having to push fixes or hot fixes or bug fixes or anything like that. They just want to push it right the first time. They want to get it right the first time. They want their updates to be smooth. It doesn't matter how long it takes. No amount of time is too much time. They want the project to be done right. And he's like, Americans are the opposite. You guys want everything done as fast as possible. You guys want things done dirty, quick, fast. It doesn't matter how it gets done as long as it gets done. So it's like quantity over quality or whatever. It's like R versus K selection, but for software. So he was like highlighting that fundamental difference between us. And it's like, yeah, I think our media cycles are way too fast. I think we have a different media strategy and we have a different media outlets and ecosystems. So yeah, I think that's true. Communication technology means that clients expect faster decisions without the time allowed in the past for thoughtful reflection. I'm glad that's part of the screenshot. Sometimes it's tempting to believe that we can use information technology to eliminate certain types of uncertainty. For example, an intelligent system could screen all messages to detect inconsistencies and weed these out. This dream is unrealistic. The next generation of computers will not eliminate uncertainty caused by inconsistencies. Great commanders are able to overcome the problem of uncertainty. Analysis of historical data shows that the effective commanders, such as Grant and Rommel, accepted the inevitability of uncertainty. Rather than being paralyzed, their actions blocked by doubt, they all possessed the ability to shape the battlefield, acting decisively and prudently at the same time. They were able to force the adversary on the defensive, shifting the burden of uncertainty. They were able to maintain flexibility without planning out various contingencies, which were sure to become obsolete. On the battlefield, plans are vulnerable to the cascading probability of disruption. If a plan depends on 6 steps and each has a 90% probability of being carried out successfully, many decision makers will feel confident, whereas the actual probability of carrying out the plan is just over 50%, since the probabilities multiply. Highly successful commanders seem to appreciate the vagaries of chance and do not waste time worrying about details that will not matter. The inference we draw is that although uncertainty is and will be inevitable, it is possible to maintain effective decision making in the face of it. Because uncertainty is inevitable, decisions can never be perfect. Often, we believe that we can improve the decision by collecting more information, but in the process, we lose opportunities. Skilled decision makers appear to know when to wait and when to act. Most important, they accept the need to act despite uncertainty. Expertise versus superstition. I have been arguing that expertise can provide important sources of power other than rational analysis. People with greater expertise can see the world differently. They have a larger storehouse of procedures to apply. They notice problems more quickly, and they have richer mental simulations to use in diagnosing problems and in evaluating courses of action. They have more analogies to draw upon. Expertise can also get us in trouble. It can lead us to view problems in stereotyped ways. The sense of typicality can be so strong that we miss subtle signs of trouble. Or we may know so much that we can explain away those signs, as in the missed diagnosis in example 16.1. In general, these shortcomings seem a small price to pay. However, there may be times when a fresh set of eyes proves helpful. Yeah, you get like the highway hypnosis. You get the, I don't know if there's another example that I can think of, but you're like, it's like stimulate, when a stimulate, oh my gosh, why can't I think of the word? Stimulants. Is the word stimulant? Maybe I'm having the same problem that I'm trying to describe. Stimulus, that's the word. It's like when you hear the same word over and over and over again, like orange, 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 and it starts to not sound like a real word. I forget what that's called. It's like something satiation. Same thing with, yeah, stimulants, sorry. The same thing happens with any stimulus. As soon as you experience it over and over and over again, without any, like too much repetition, without any kind of like variation, without any kind of different stimulus, if it's the same stimulus over and over and over again, we become blind to it. We start to ignore it. So the same thing can happen with too much expertise. We may not even notice it. That happens when sometimes an expert can be trying to teach a newbie. You're trying to teach someone who's fresh and they've never seen the situation before. It's kind of like hard to see it from the eyes of a beginner all over again. It's kind of hard to remember how you learn those things. So being able to explain those things is almost an impossibility too in certain cases. It's like, how do you go back to seeing it as a novice? How do you go back to seeing it as someone who's brand new? That's where the fresh set of eyes comes in. It's like, what is it like to be a pilot on their first day again? What is it like to be a military sniper? What is it like to be, I don't know. My brain's really falling apart here. I need some sugar. I haven't had sugar in like 6 hours. I haven't eaten in like 8 hours. I'm gonna have to eat something soon. I am more troubled by the difficulty of learning from experience. We cannot often see a clear link between cause and effect. Too many variables intervene, and time delays create their own complications. If managers find themselves having success, getting projects completed on schedule and under budget, does that success stem from their own skills, the skills of their subordinates, temporary good luck, interventions of higher level administrators, a blend of these factors, or some other causes altogether? There is no easy way to tell. We can learn the wrong lessons from experience. That is so true. Each time we compile a story about an experience, we run the risk of getting it wrong and stamping in the wrong strategy. Let's pop that in there. An analog here is the way historians debate about the causes of famous events. For example, the Great Depression. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected president in 1932 to help the nation climb back to prosperity, and he took many strong actions. Some historians and economists argue that these actions did the trick, and others claim that they made the problem worse. The Great Depression was an event of major importance in our history that received enormous scrutiny, and we still do not know if Roosevelt's actions were effective in bringing about economic recovery. Yeah, it's like a mirror. It's like a wishing well. You get to kind of get whatever you want from it. Events like these, events that have so many causes and so many variables that affect them, so many linkages. It's very difficult to make any one analysis that encompasses the whole thing, that explains the whole thing and all the parts and all the, like, how do you make a claim like that, because it has to explain all the events after it as well. It's very difficult. And before, it's like you're not just explaining the event, you're explaining the event in time, in the sense that you have to explain the connections to the previous events, the historical events leading up to it. You have to explain it in the context of the future, because now it's a past event. We can look back and say, well, this is what happened right after. How do you explain that? Very difficult. It's a difficult task. Because of the difficulty of interpreting cause and effect relationships, lawmakers cannot achieve high levels of expertise. They can certainly master the procedures of being politicians, for example, getting on the most influential committees, forging ties with lobbyists, and doing favors for the right people. Nevertheless, they cannot learn the long-term impacts of the legislation that they consider. They cannot learn the causal dynamics between a piece of legislation and eventual social changes. Their mental models are not flexible or rich. When politicians ask to be reelected because of their experience, they are referring to the efficiency with which they do their job, not their growing wisdom in judging which laws to propose and support. This brings us to the question of superstition. Let me get some real music up in here real quick. Many of us consider superstitions as characteristics of primitive cultures that have not been able to figure out cause and effect relationships. We hear stories of cultures that have never learned the linkage between conception and the birth that occurs 9 months later. We hear stories about magical thinking, such as performing rituals to ensure that the crops will be good. Citizens of a rational society should be beyond superstitions. Yet, we follow rituals all the time without any evidence that they work. We pass laws on all sorts of topics without any evidence that they will change behaviors. We encourage unhappy people to seek counseling for a great many problems for which there is no evidence that counseling will provide benefit. Corporations adopt fads to build morale or increase motivation without any evidence at all that these will work. They reorganize to improve efficiency without any definitive evidence that the new structure will be any better. We read the latest scare reports about foods that are linked to cancers, and try to adjust our diets accordingly, even though for most of these reports there is no indication that these linkages will have any practical impacts on lifespan. In short, our lives are just as governed by superstitions as those of less advanced cultures. The content of the superstitions has changed, but not the degree to which they control us. The reason is that for many important aspects of our lives, we cannot pin down the causal relationships. We must act on faith, rumor, and precedent. In a domain such as fighting fires, caring for hospitalized infants, or flying an airplane, expertise can be gained. In other domains such as selecting stocks, making public policy, or raising a child, the time delays are long and the feedback is uncertain. Jim Shantou in 1992 has suggested that we will not build up real expertise when the domain is dynamic. We have to predict human behavior. We have less chance for feedback. The task does not have enough repetition to build a sense of typicality, or we have fewer trials. Under these conditions, we should be cautious about assuming that experience translates into expertise. In these sorts of domains, experience would give us smooth routines. So all of this is counting on that the information is fragmented, or that the cause and effect relationships are fragmented. Like there's no continuous data linkages between these two. So it's about being able to connect data. It's about being able to recognize patterns. In these sorts of under these conditions, we should be cautious about assuming that experience translates into expertise. In these sorts of domains, see, I hate that. That drives me nuts. Delete. Can I just hit enter? No. Dude, it's gonna keep doing this. This is bull crap. If you guys could see what I'm doing, you'd be pissed off too. And I'm hungry. This is making me so mad. Okay, I'm gonna press H. Head notes. Double click or long tap on a highlight to read its notes. Can I just Control enter? Okay, there we go. Oh my god. Okay, so it's not me. I can't fix that. I thought I was fucking up. See, technology just sometimes will not cooperate. Let's see if I can get it like this. Control enter. Yeah, there we go. In these sorts of domains, experience would give us smooth routines, showing that we had been doing the job for a while. Yet, our expertise might not go much beyond these surface routines. We would not have a chance to develop reliable expertise. Leah Di Bello had studied the way people in organizations learn different kinds of complex skills. She found that she could distinguish competent workers who had mastered the routines from the real experts. So someone who's just going through the motions, who doesn't understand why they're doing them, or could not make those routines themselves. Maybe they're just like following orders. If she gave people a task that violated the rules they had been using, the experts would quickly notice the violation and find a way to work around it. They could improvise to achieve the desired goal. Where does this leave us regarding the growth of expertise? At one extreme is the work of Erickson and Charnes in 1994, suggesting almost anyone can become expert at almost anything given enough practice. At the other extreme is the work of people like Rousseau and Shoemaker, suggesting that all of us are inherently biased and unreliable as decision makers. And in between is the suggestion of Shantou that expertise is more easily acquired in some domains than others. In short, we do not have answers yet. we may have a basis for asking better questions about the way expertise develops. All right, we've reached the applications, and the key points are right after, so we're not far. And I'm going to grab some food, and then we may do the conclusions, depending on how I feel when I get back. Applications. One way to improve performance is to be more careful in considering alternate explanations and diagnoses for a situation. The de minimis error may arise from using mental simulation to explain away cues that are early warnings of a problem. One exercise to correct this tendency is to use the crystal ball technique discussed in Chapter 5. The idea is that you can look at the situation, pretend that a crystal ball has shown that your explanation is wrong, and try to come up with a different explanation. This is like the pre-mortem. Each time you stretch for a new explanation, you are likely to consider more factors, more nuances. This should reduce fixation on a single explanation. The crystal ball method is not well suited for time-pressured conditions. But by practicing with it when we have the time, we may learn what it feels like to fixate on a hypothesis. This judgment may help us in situations of time pressure. A second application is to accept all errors as inevitable. In complex situations, no amount of effort is going to be able to prevent any errors. Jens Rasmussen, in 1974, came to this conclusion in his work with nuclear power plants, which is one of the industries most preoccupied with safety. He pointed out that the typical method for handling error is to erect defenses that make the errors less and less likely by adding warnings, safeguards, automatic shutoffs, and all kinds of other defenses. While these do reduce the number of errors at a cost, sorry, I just added a word for no reason. These do reduce the number of errors, but at a cost. And errors will continue to be made, and accidents will continue to happen. In a massively defended system, if an accident sneaks through all of the defenses, the operators will find it far more difficult to diagnose and correct it. That is because they must deal with all of the defenses along with the accident itself. Recall examples 13.7, the flight mismanagement systems. A unit designed to reduce small errors helped to create a much larger one. Since defenses in depth do not seem to work, Rasmussen suggests a different approach. Instead of erecting defenses, accept malfunctions and errors and make their existence more visible. We can try to design better human-system interfaces that let the system operators quickly notice that something is going wrong and form diagnoses and reactions. Instead of trusting the systems, and by extension, the cleverness of the design engineers, we could trust the competence of the operators and make sure they have the tools to maintain situation awareness throughout the incident. All right, we've reached the key points. This is the end. This is the end of all of the chapters that are not the conclusion chapter. So this is the final normal chapter. I'm going to grab some food after this one, and I might be back. I'm really feeling the hunger. My hands are getting shaky. And it happens when my blood sugar is low, so. And I'm getting a little clammy. I know when I'm hungry, so I got to get some food. Key points. Decision biases do not seem to explain poor decisions. Stress does not result in faulty decision-making strategies, but may limit the information we can consider in making the decisions. Most poor decisions may result from having inadequate knowledge and expertise, and experience does not translate directly into expertise. If the domain is dynamic, feedback is inadequate, and the number and variety of experiences is too small. Okay, that is chapter 16. We've arrived at chapter 17, the conclusions of the book. I'm hungry, so I'm going to get out of here, but I just want to thank everybody for watching and listening. Anybody who stopped by to chat, shout out to Stimulant for coming by. Good night, Stimulant, in case you're going to sleep. I'm not going to sleep just yet. I'm going to go grab some food. I made some Italian food earlier. I'm going to grab some of that. And if I still have energy, I'm going to come back and read this one on the next stream in just a few minutes. So we'll see. Anthony, Kahneman, stress will help you remember the event or study. How do you synthesize those two things? Stress does not result in faulty decision-making strategies, but may limit the information we can consider in making the decisions. So he's saying that stress does not result in faulty decision-making, and stress will help you remember the event or study. But it does limit the information we can consider, or it may. So one thing, so if it's a focused stress, it might make us help. So the training should be very stressful but very focused. And the more focused it can be, the more stressful it can be. Maybe that's something to take away from that. Because then you can remember it more, and you don't have to worry about all the information overload because it's focused. So it's all about the narrowing it down to a training on very specific tasks, showing the repeated experience over and over. That's a good point, Anthony. Thank you for that. Good point. We always got to synthesize the two things we read. I wish I remembered that tip specifically. Post-training stress helps memory. They'd throw kids in the river to do this. I'll have to consider that one. I'm trying to think of an example in my own life. Very stressful after learning something, after an experience. I don't know. I feel like maybe the education system's all backwards, because I'm trying to look back to like my personal education experience, like through elementary to like high school, even college. When did I ever have a stressful experience after learning something? I mean, like, you could think about it as like the exam is stressful after you have the course. The finals, the midterms and the finals are stressful. But like that's like the process itself of learning. I don't know. I think the education system is whack. I think it's fucked up. I think there's a lot of problems with the way we teach and the way we expect students to learn. So there might be something to that. I might have to think about that one. That's a really good point right at the end. So glad this is on the screen. Example for me, coffee after reading or study to spike adrenaline. Anthony says, so yeah. Maybe that's why people play video games. Play like Factorio. They play like the horror games like Amnesia or like Five Nights at Freddy's. They like play that after studying or something. Maybe that has like something. You're playing like RTS. You play like Europa, or you play Civ. You play like a really stressful game right after. You play StarCraft right after you study. Maybe that helps you learn. I'm going to have to consider this. Mandatory stress. Mandatory. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. I'm going to end the stream. I'll be right back for the next one.